Is 1/10 of a second the difference between a Pro Bowler and a bust? Because if it is, then you should be concerned about who has been projected to the Cowboys consistently lately.
Bijan Robinson? Be concerned about him?
No. This was an interesting note I saw over the weekend. This was former PFF writer Kevin Cole, who wised up, got the hell out of that place, started his own spot, Unexpected Points, and he was just doing some general research on position groups and how they test and everything like that. That's a big conversation this time of year. And he had this tweet where he said, "Draft fast tight ends sounds overly simplistic, but nearly all of the most successful NFL tight ends hit the 50th percentile or better in 40-yard dash and the 10-yard split, which might be more important for judging start-stop ability." And so when you look at, again, so when you talk about 50th percentile, you take all the data from the combine over the last, 20 years or whatever else. The tight ends who ran in the top 50% or better, which I don't know that that's fast, just to say you're middle of the road, your 50th percentile, who had a 10-yard time and a 40-yard time that were in the top 50%, they all are really good players. You look at just some of the names here that fall into this. Dallas Goedert, Hayden Hurst, Gerald Everett, Travis Kelce, Greg Olsen, Jared Cook, Jimmy Graham, Dawson Knox, Darren Waller, Evan Ingram. All these guys are big-time players. So it made me want to go research some stuff because I have been a big fan during this draft process of Luke Musgrave, who is
Casey's brother, yeah.
That's the one. The tight end from Oregon State. And biggest question about him is just his health. He's dealt with a lot of injuries during his time at Oregon State. He only played in 2 games last year because of it. He's always missing time because of injuries. There's some questions about his knee at the combine, which did get medically cleared. I believe the Cowboys cleared him as well. But he is a fantastic talent. It's just you got to wonder, well, is he going to be healthy? And is he somebody who's going to be able to have a sustained run in the NFL? The most common name we're getting is Michael Mayer, the tight end from Notre Dame. And he is the one that is a guy that is really good at his job, but he's not a dynamic threat. He's going to be your typical Y option, 8 to 10 yard type of tight end. We talked about this with Ross Tucker on Friday, and Ross basically told me I was an idiot and said, look, Michael Mayer's probably an 8, and that's his ceiling, but wouldn't you rather have the 8 than the Luke Musgrave type, who's a potential 9 or 10, but could also be a 3?
See, that's the interesting. I want that at quarterback.
Not at tight end, though.
I think at other positions, I want, like, and here's the problem. Nobody's really a sure thing, right? Mm-hmm. These guys are all, coin flips for the most part. But at quarterback, I want the boom or bust. I don't want.
Yeah, safe.
I like Jared Goff, but, like, if I'm drafted, like, that's not my goal.
Yeah.
We
always point to, like, Alex Smith.
Fine. Good, efficient, good quarterback. You could win with him. But that's not, like, the goal is to find Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Like, that's the goal. If you were to tell me, hey, you're going to draft this guy and he'll be Jared Goff and he'll have a good career. Okay, I mean, like, look, if that's my option, that's my option. But, like, that's not my goal. My goal is to find Patrick Mahomes.
So I went and looked up over the last decade how many tight ends there have been that have registered a 1,000-yard season in the NFL. There have been 11 of them in 10 years. Travis Kelce's done it a bunch. Rob Gronkowski's done it a few times. But these are the guys that have registered a 1,000-yard season in the last decade. Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski, Greg Olsen, Darren Waller, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, Zach Ertz, Gary Barnidge, Delaney Walker, and Jimmy Graham. That's it.
Wow.
So when you look at that median that he talked about, Kevin Cole, when he referenced how fast the 40 times are and everything else, all of these, the median is 4.76 on the 40 time. The 10-yard split is 1.66. The slowest 40 time in the group of those Pro Bowl tight ends is 4.68, and that was Gronkowski. That's the 72nd percentile of tight ends. So you're talking about the top 28% of the tight end group when it comes to 40-yard testing is the only ones we've seen get 1,000-yard seasons recently. The slowest 10-yard time was 1.64 from Zach Ertz. That's the 70th percentile among tight ends. So you are talking about the best start-stop straight line speed athletes are the ones that are getting you 1,000-yard seasons at tight end in the NFL. Michael Mayer at Notre Dame is the only tight end in the group that tested at the combine that ran a 40 slower than Gronkowski's 4.68 and a 10-yard split slower than Zach Ertz's 1.64. He's the only one.
So by the numbers with the clock, he should be eliminated.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we're talking about 11 players over a decade, but you can't really jump back 20 years ago because the game has changed so much that 40 times and stuff, it's not as applicable today. So just in that 10-year time, Mayer's 10-yard and 40-yard splits are both slower than they would have.
Is he top 50 percentile?
He is. He is top 50 percentile, okay. But for the 1,000 yards, which is just a vague, the most successful.
He's the Witten comp.
Yeah, but even Witten's 10-yard and 40 were faster. And
Witten was not.
Tennessee Vol choked up.
Yeah, Witten was not slow coming out of college.
No, he wasn't slow. He was 4.65.
Yeah, he was not slow. He as he got older, obviously, he became more of a statue.
All this is just making me question selfishly, do I push my godson to play receiver or tight end?
Can he bulk up?
Yeah.
He's got a frame to fill out.
He's 6'4".
Yeah. Then yeah. If you're 6'4", 6'5", and you can run a little bit, yeah, absolutely. Now Michael Mayer's
tight end over receiver.
Michael Mayer's 10-yard split, the short area quickness. Michael Mayer's 10-yard split was the worst one at the combine this year. It was 1.66. It was the slowest one. And so when you look at Luke Musgrave, who I'm a big fan of, Luke Musgrave's 10-yard split was the fastest one at the combine. It was 1.54. And so that would be tied for the fastest one of those 1,000-yard receiving tight ends. Mark Andrews, who had a 1.54, and then his 40 time at the combine was 4.61, which was the fourth best. And again, would be up there among the group of tight ends that have done it. That puts you into like the 80th percentile of both numbers, what Luke Musgrave had. Whereas Mayer is above that 50th percentile, but he's not up to that level that we've seen of elite production. So, is this just a simplistic way to boil it down? Is this a coincidence? Or is it something to say, you've got to at least look at it and say, these are the traits of guys who have been successful and had these types of seasons at the NFL?
Yeah, I think it's something to look at.
I absolutely, like, I love this kind of stuff. I think scouting is very subjective, right? One scout, Bobby, you're watching a guy, Sean, you're watching a guy, you guys can see the same player, and one loves him, and one thinks this is not even a draftable person.
Right?
And it's very subjective. This is like, okay, the history of this position shows if you're not in the top 50 percentile in either one of these, you turn out to be a bust. I think that's pretty big. I think that's pretty big. I could be way off.
Yeah, now he does fall into the 50th percentile just for not being a bust. And so and I think that's exactly what he's going to be. I just don't think he's a 1,000-yard guy. And I mean, it's if you're talking about the modern tight end and the type of weapon you want, don't you want one of those 11 guys over the last decade who have been such impossible mismatches for defense? Because if those are the traits you want Luke Musgrave, you want Dalton Kincaid. Now, Kincaid didn't test because he had a back issue at the combine, but he's somebody who would have tested up near that level. So just something to think about.
Brian brought us in studio tomorrow at 8 a.m.
Look at that.
All right.
The 33rd team has a 2023 NFL draft odds list. And they've started getting into betting over there at the 33rd team. At first they were just doing, film analysis and stuff like that. Shout out Mike Martz, who joined us a couple weeks ago and set everyone straight on Dak Prescott being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. They've started really dipping into some of these betting subjects. And one of the ones they did was they were telling you the bets that you should make based off of the draft odds that have been given to NFC East teams. And there's some interesting ones here with the Cowboys. The position they are most likely to take, according to Vegas, in the first round is it's plus 200.
Plus 200.
I
would say pass catcher. How about that?
Well, no, that's
not how they're going to break it.
I'll go tight end.
It's tight end.
Yeah, that's it.
They recommend, the 33rd team does. They said, we recommend not betting on this line. They did lose Dalton Schultz, but if Michael Mayer's the number 26, it's in play. But tight end is not a premium position. This is what I find interesting. Second best odds, not that far off at plus 225.
Receiver.
Defensive line.
Okay. Is there a lot of them available at that spot?
There's some tackles maybe. The top edge rushers are going to be gone. And that's one of the things they note. They say, again, this one's a little tough because the top 6 pass rushers in this class are most likely gone by the 26th pick. So you're talking about picking the 7th best edge rusher versus maybe the best tight end, maybe the best receiver.
That's where you start getting into some squirrely areas where you might get a taco in there. You know, when you just say, well, we're not going to find another one for about 3 more rounds, so we might as well take one now.
3rd best odds.
Corner.
No.
Running back.
No.
Guard.
Nope. Well, technically. Offensive line. Plus 400. Now, this to me, if you're talking about just based off of these odds, I think there's a good chance the tight end is the pick. But if you're talking about the value on these odds, plus 400 for an offensive lineman is really good because I think there's a decent chance they pick an offensive lineman at 26. But what I find interesting is just behind that, wide receiver is plus 550 and running back is plus 600. Now that plus 600, I think basically equates to...
They're counting on the Cowboys being smart.
Well, I think
nobody's available.
I think they believe plus 600 is those are the odds that Bijan would get to 26. And that if he gets there, great. If he's not there, they're not going to take Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama. And so I just find it interesting, though, that Vegas looks at this and says, you've got tight end as the top odds. Then you've got defensive line as the next one above offensive line, receiver, running back for a team that has clearly said, we've got to fix our offense.
I saw a mock was it Schrager's? That had the Cowboys taking Gibbs from Bama.
Yeah, Peter Schrager did have Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama, which would be very interesting to pick a 5'9", 190-pound running back
Well, you
at
can probably
26.
get him with your next pick.
Maybe not yours. He falls in that that purgatory area between picks. But so I mean, if they wanted to trade back or they wanted to insure, sure, they could grab him there. But I think offensive line, receiver, and running back being behind defensive line right now is really interesting and not something I would bank on.
And does it have the favorite for the other teams real quick?
For Philadelphia, the favorite position to pick is offensive line at minus 160.
That must be Peter Skoronski. Kelsey, Lane Johnson pick to replace them.
Yep. Giants is minus 105 for receiver, and then the Commanders are minus 140 for a cornerback.